My ex-boyfriend demanded half my house, claiming that I was successful because of him. We'd been broken up for 7 months when Tyler sent me a text out of nowhere congratulating me on my new place. I'd posted exactly one photo on Instagram holding my keys in front of the door, and suddenly he was acting like we were old friends catching up. He asked which neighborhood I'd chosen and how many bedrooms the place had. I gave short answers thinking he was just being polite. Then he asked for my address so he could send a housewarming gift. I ignored that message completely. 3 days later, he showed up at my office during my lunch break. He was waiting in the lobby when I came down and acted surprised to run into me, even though my office building has 200 employees. He said he was in the area and thought we could grab coffee. I told him I was busy, but he followed me to the coffee shop anyway. While we waited in line, he asked to see pictures of my house. I pulled up a few photos on my phone and he zoomed in on each one, studying the layout and asking questions about square footage and whether I had a basement. He actually took notes in his phone about the number of windows in my living room. The whole interaction felt strange, but I figured he was just curious about real estate since he'd mentioned wanting to buy a place someday. I went back to work and didn't think much about it. That weekend, I came home from grocery shopping and found Tyler sitting on my porch steps. He was drinking a coffee and scrolling through his phone like he'd been waiting a while. I asked him what he was doing there and how he got my address. He said addresses are public record, and he just wanted to see the place in person. He walked around my yard, commenting on the landscaping and the condition of the roof. He tried the side gate and looked into my backyard. The whole time he was nodding and making, sounds like he was inspecting property he owned. I told him he needed to leave. He said we should talk inside because he had something important to discuss. I refused to let him in, so we stood in my driveway while he explained his theory. He said he'd been thinking a lot about my career success and realized he'd played a major role in it. During our 2 years together, he'd encouraged me to apply for promotions. He'd listened to me practice presentations. He'd given me advice about office politics. He'd been my emotional support system, and that support had directly contributed to my professional growth. Without him, I'd probably still be in my old position making less money. He said all of this like he was stating obvious facts. I stared at him trying to figure out if he was serious. He pulled a folder from his car and handed it to me. Inside was a typed document with his name at the top. It outlined his contributions to my success in bullet points: emotional support during stressful projects, motivation to pursue advancement opportunities, confidence building that enabled me to negotiate higher salaries. At the bottom, he'd written a dollar amount, $30,000. He said that was a conservative estimate of what his support had added to my lifetime earnings. He was willing to accept either a cash payment or having his name added to my house deed as partial owner. I looked at the document and then at him standing in my driveway with his arms crossed like he'd just presented a reasonable business proposal. I asked him if he was joking. He said he'd never been more serious about anything. He'd invested 2 years of emotional labor into our relationship, and he deserved compensation for that investment now that it had paid off for me. He said most people would recognize this as fair, and he was disappointed I was being difficult about it. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app without saying a word. I scrolled back to the time period when we were together and started adding up transactions. Car insurance payment when his policy lapsed, credit card bills I'd covered when he maxed out his cards, rent payments for 5 straight months when he was between jobs, his share of groceries that I'd paid for every single week, the $700 gift for his brother's wedding because he said he'd pay me back later, his dental work when he needed 2 crowns, countless dinners and drinks where he'd forgotten his wallet, concert tickets, gas money. The deposits kept going and going. The total came to over $18,000 that I'd spent keeping him afloat while he was figuring out his life. I turned the screen toward him and told him I'd accept his $30,000 minus my $18,000, so he could just write me a check for $12,000 right now. His mouth opened, but nothing came out, and he backed toward his car without looking away from my phone. I called after him asking when I could expect payment, but he was already driving away.